Joined us from the studios of the American Space Museum in downtown Titusville, Florida. We're just about 10 miles away from this beautiful green screen photo was taking place of two orbiters on pads, something we'll never ever see again. As a battle with Marty Winkle, my co-producer for over 5 years of Stay Curious broadcasts. We're up to 1,300 and something episodes. And today's a bittersweet story to talk about the final shuttle launch 14 years ago on July 8th, 2011. And we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes and look at the crew and some interesting facts and some pretty pictures about the last shuttle flight of all time. And but before we get wound up on that, we thank Chris Calley for letting us share this beautiful piece of artwork of his. We came in peace for all mankind. Something we shared on our Facebook page over the 4th of July. I had a good one. Like I said, I hope you did. Marty, did you shoot off a whole pile of fireworks in your driveway?
I shot off nothing.
Nothing, huh? Well, I saw a lot of fireworks up there and a fun environment on the lake up there at South Holston Lake in Bristol, Tennessee, and then downtown Bristol had a big event. So all safe and a lot of fun, a lot of family fun, and hope that you enjoyed it as summer's rolling along. We're now full speed ahead for the summer of 2025 with a lot ahead of us. We got two interesting book authors ahead of us here the next couple days. We're going to have Christopher Lee Jones in here on Wednesday the 9th talking about the Kessler effect. He's an advocate of the Kessler effect, which I know just by name. That is a space debris colliding, and you can't stop it once it starts, called the Kessler effect. And Christopher wrote a book, Mars Mission 1, a fictional account that involves the Kessler effect in there. So looking forward to Christopher Lee Jones tomorrow in our studio. And then Vern Connor wrote a book called Behind the Missiles about his father being a space worker, Marty, and a lot of interesting stories of Vern growing up, and we're going to hear some of those about his book on Thursday on Stay Curious. So hadn't interviewed a book author in a while and then get him back to back. So we're lining up a big week the following week of the Apollo-Soyuz test project, 50th anniversary of America and Russia shaking hands in space. And then we're also going to be talking about Apollo 11's 56th anniversary. And the moon landing July 20th is on a Sunday this year. So look forward to seeing Christopher and Vern the next couple of days and hope you do too. Well, who's in space? How many who's orbiting Earth? Let's catch up with that. 14 humans orbiting Earth. Let me get a big slug of courage here out of my beautiful mug, Steve Jokums. You're probably watching today. Reminds me to go over here and check our channel out to say hi to you all there, and hit the live button that we're broadcasting live there. So we're up and running again. Marty can't keep us down. There's Steve saying hi to all of his friends online today from Fox Lake, New Jersey. And good afternoon to you, Tom Musiak. It was nice talking to you last night, getting me down the road. Carlton Bailey, Dean Babcock. And who's bridging the space? Jubilee's bridging the space with us again, as well as Dave Stange. So I know you're all curious about when Axiom 4 is going to come back. Have you heard the news? Well, let me share it with you here in a minute. We've got 14 humans orbiting Earth. And at the top is the Crew Dragon from the Crew Dragon 10, didn't put the 10 up there, which has Anne McClain, Nicole Ayers, Kirill Presov, and Tayoka Ushini. All right. They have been up in space for 115 days, launched in March 14th to be exact. So they're over halfway of their stay in space. They're on the backside of it up there. Anne McClain, her second trip to space, she's the ISS commander right now. She's been up there 320 days. And Onushi, the Japanese astronaut, his second stint, and this is his 230th day in space. And then below there, Soyuz MS-27 includes an American astronaut, Johnny Kim, with two Russians, Sergei Resakov and Alexei Subritsky. They have been up there now 91 days. Okay, they were up there just a couple weeks before the Crew 10 went up there. A couple days after. Crew 10 has got 115, and Soyuz M-27 has got 91 days up there. And the middle guy in the middle there, Sergey, he's got 450 days in space on three ISS expedition missions. Then let's talk about the Shenzhou 20 Chinese astronauts up there. They've been on space 75 days. Kind of interesting how all these crews are within about a month of each other. And they're 75 days, about halfway through their 150 days or so in space. And Chen Dong over on the left, this is his 291st day in space on his second flight to the Heavenly Palace Tiangong space station. And then we've got our Axiom 4 astronauts there at the bottom, led by Peggy Whitson. And then three other countries represented there. India with Shukla, Hungarian with Tubar Kapu, and Poland with Slawaz. And this is their 14th day in space. And they're going to undock Saturday morning at 6:04 is the undocking of the Axiom 4th private flight to the International Space Station. That'll be in their 18th day on Saturday at 6 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, 6:04. They're supposed to undock and probably land one orbit later, maybe two orbits later. 2 orbits later would bring them about 3 hours later, so maybe at 9 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. That'd be 6 in the morning in the dark over in where they plan to land in the Pacific Ocean. Did not see the landing time. If any of you did, please let us know there. And I said Steve Jokem's, New Jersey. I'm sorry to insult you there, my friend. I meant Illinois, Fox Lake, Illinois. Got New Jersey on my mind. He's Illinois and proud of it, he said. So calm down, Steve. It's my Monday here. Anyway, that's who's in space. 14 humans. Let's see. We've got 3 Americans, and of the 3 Americans, 2 are women. Anne McLean, Nicole Ayers, and Johnny Kim are the Americans. We got 3 Chinese. We got 1 Japanese, and we've got 3 Russians, and then you've got India, Poland, and Hungary. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and China makes 7 countries orbiting the Earth. 7 countries. Think about that in the annals of space history. I don't think that might be a first there, because having 4 countries represented on the Axiom 4, 5, and then 6 would be Russia, and Japan makes 7. So quite an era to be living with space here in the 21st century. So that's who's in space. Soon to dip down to 10, but 14 humans are orbiting Earth right now. And here is Nicole Ayers. I saw a nickname for her that was interesting, and I don't think I brought that over here with me. But there's the whole crew of Expedition 73 plus the Axiom. So you've got 11 people in the International Space Station. And though there's 6 or 7 modules, it is crowded up there. Hey, Daniel DeYoung. Good afternoon to you, my friend. Hope things have been working out for you great. He was on the show about less than a month ago. And we always enjoy Daniel in his comments and participation with Stay Curious. There is the Axiom 4 crew chilling out with some drinks there on the International Space Station, hydrating certainly after they made their 2-day trip up there. And there's Nicole. She's working with a microgravity experiment, just kind of part of the day that you have up there in space. Nicole Ayers, this is her 116th day in space as a rookie. So she certainly is used to it up there. And they do a lot of experiments, of course, that they train for, keep going back and harvesting that data to bring back to Earth. So good luck to them. Well, here's the space launch of, to end all ends, the STS-135 launch. Okay, big fisheye wide-angle lens on a remote camera there. It was a hot July day on Florida's Space Coast as nearly 1 million spectators gathered along the beaches, rivers, and causeways to watch history in the making. Despite a gloomy pre-launch weather forecast, July 8, 2011, Space Shuttle Atlantis thundered off Launch Pad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center at 11:29 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The liftoff marked the last time a space shuttle would pierce the sky after 30 years of flights. Marty, you know I'm going to ask you if you remember anything about this at all, as you were, I guess, looking at retirement. I forget if you worked after this last launch. What was that like, Marty?
It was kind of quiet, Mark. In the software side of the house, the ground software for launching the vehicles and testing them, we were done. We had nothing to do the last few weeks, and we just hung out there and enjoyed the quiet up until launch time.
Up until launch time. The 13-day mission carried 9,400 pounds of spare parts, spare equipment, and other supplies in the Raphael multi-purpose logistics model, including almost 300 pounds of food. The supplies were delivered to sustain the space station for the next year. Okay, and Raphael brought back twice as much garbage of unneeded materials from the station. So I always thought, why 4 astronauts? And let's get to the patch here in a minute. We'll talk about that here coming up. There's my shuttles of the month of July. Wait, let's go back here. Love to talk about our shuttles. 11 beautiful shuttles in the month of July. And this was the 4th one launched in the month on July 8th, of course, in 2011. We had Atlantis had 3 missions, Discovery 3. The leader was Columbia, OV-102 with 4 flights, and 1 each for Challenger and Endeavour. And interestingly, over in the lower left hand, the 283 and 114 were Eileen Collins' 2 commands, the Gamma Ray Observatory in 1999, and then 6 years later was her command of the return to flight. So she waited 6 years to fly again, of course, because of the Columbia accident in 2001, 2003. So, and we got some interesting ones there. The Cola Wars is STF-51F, and the Northern Flicker Woodpecker intervened on STS-70, and that was the All-Ohio crew. But there's the ultimate final of the program, STS-135. What a classy symbol emblem they have there. And let's look into what is the meaning behind this final mission patch of the Shuttle Era. The STS-130, of course, Space Transportation System is what STS stands for. It represents the Space Shuttle Atlantis embarking on its mission to resupply the International Space Station. Atlantis is centered over elements of the NASA's emblem, depicting how the Space Shuttle has been at the heart of NASA for the last 30 years. It also pays tribute to the entire NASA and contractor team that made possible all the incredible accomplishments of the Space Shuttle. Omega, the last letter in the Greek alphabet, recognizes this mission as the last flight of the Space Shuttle program. The gold is the Omega there, and the stylized exhaust coming out with vectors on there. And once again, launched at a half hour before noon on July 8th. And it was a long mission, the 37th flight of a logistics multi-purpose module. And here's the crew. Chris Ferguson, right there on the center to the right. This was Fergie's third and last mission. Doug Hurley's in the foreground with him. His nickname is Chunky, was his call sign, still is. Ferguson, by the way, born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Hurley was born in Endicott, New York, but grew up in Appalachian, New York. This was his second flight, and he flew the crew demo of, famously, of the first crewed flight of the Crew Dragon in the year 2020. So he's got 3 flights under his belt, still an astronaut, I believe. Sandy Magnus grew up in Belleville, Illinois. Okay. And this was her third of 3 flights. And Rex Walheim, born in Red City, California, grew up in San Carlos, California. That was our 3 astronauts. And I kept wondering, Marty, why wouldn't you put 7 up there? Give a couple rookies the experience, or so, because they work so hard and so forth. Why didn't they put anybody in the mid deck below the crew cabin up there? And you know what I was told, Marty?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, why?
They could carry more supplies up to the space station.
Exactly. They crammed that mid-deck full of all kinds of extra supplies, computer equipment, whatever they could cram in there, because this, obviously, the shuttle, the largest object to dock with the International Space Station, they wanted to bring up as much supplies as they could, because this was it. And the only supply ship we have is the Progress cargo ship. Though in the queue were the other cargo ships of Cygnus from Northrop Grumman, Cygnus, and the Crew Dragon supply ship also there. Yes, Marty, got a question?
Yeah, question from Dean Babcock. Is Rex Walheim still in the astronaut corps?
Don't know. I don't know. It was his third of 3 missions. He'd certainly be waiting around 14 years and hasn't flown like Doug Hurley has. Doug Hurley, by the way, Chunky's married to Karen Nyberg, and she did quilting in space and so forth. So, and I've met Ferguson quite a bit. He's on the Space Coast frequently at events and supports the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex there. So Marty's looking up Walheim, I believe, for y'all there. But what a crowd. This is at the famous bridge right beside Spaceview Park here in Titusville, the Max Brewer Bridge. Look at those people up there, Marty. That is a sight to behold. A photographer's delight to see everybody up there. Oh, my gosh. The pad's over here to the right, okay, with the big 3 10-story luxury apartment condos are on the there in front of it beside Spaceview Park there. So what a group it was for sure. There's another group of people at 11:29 right at the launch there along the boardwalk there at Spaceview Park. Sure, Ozzy's in that crowd somewhere. We miss you, Ozzy, the gentleman that was out there doing the launches for decades, passed away a couple years ago. And there is the launch on a cloudy day. All right, nothing to brag about weather-wise, but hot and hazy, kind of like today is out there. And there you see the shuttle lifting off pad 39A. I always love the stylized, I call them Hollywood posters that the they put together, like the last half of the shuttle flights had an awareness poster. This is more like a movie poster for sure. The final mission, they used a stylized black and white photos there, tinted a bluish in there with serious looks on everybody's faces there. You see the crew at the bottom there. Pretty cool. And here is the closeout crew, the legendary group of 7. Curious going in the early days with his Tales from the White Room, and we haven't seen Travis in a while. He's always welcome back, but we've just sort of lost track of the young man there. But there's a picture of Travis with Miles O'Brien and astronaut Leroy Chow on the right there. Miles O'Brien, a network news reporter there, interviewing everybody. Quite an event there, Marty. Media-wise, of course, the last of such a successful mission. 2 tragedies in 30 years, but each one, NASA picked themselves off the ground and continued to do what they know best, create innovation and change our world. Yes, Marty.
Yeah, Rex is retired, and Steve Holcomb says he retired in August 2020.
All right, Steve. Thank you very much. Database Steve there. And appreciate everybody watching today. Tell your friends to like, share, and get the word out for the American Space Museum's YouTube channel. We're approaching 4,000 viewers, and we've worked very hard to build this up over 5 years. So thank you all for sharing and whatnot with that. A couple pretty pictures of the launch here. Punching through the clouds there. Didn't have a whole great view of it, as I gather, by the overcast clouds, but the noise, no doubt, was still there, and a crowd pleaser to the 1 million people that watched this. This was the largest crowd since STS-95 and the launch of John Glenn. The return to flights, I don't think 114 wasn't as big a crowd. I could be wrong. And I pulled off a couple really cool pictures of Atlantis docked to the International Space Station's segment called Harmony. What an awesome photo that you rarely see. 125 miles below are the puffy clouds down there. And another shot of Atlantis docked to Harmony. Such a huge spaceship docked to this structure. And there's the STS-80 crew. That was the 28. STS-28 crew mixed together. I see Ron Guerin over here on the left, and then the 4 Sandy Magnus. Where's Sandy at?
On top, I think.
Yeah, she's on top there in the middle there. So, and a parting shot out of Atlantis, one of its windows, looking at the International Space Station, saying goodbye as they were ready to deorbit and head back to Earth on there. So I thought I threw a couple pretty pictures up there for us, including this that Marty chose as the green screen there. STS-400, it was designated, Endeavor on the pad there. Little hint of rainbow in the distance. This was done something like 17 times or 13 times, or maybe 13 times, where you had more than one shuttle out on the pad at the same time. And separation of that, Marty, is that over 2 miles?
It's probably
3.5, isn't it?
You mean from pad A to pad B?
Yeah.
The way the crow flies, I think, is probably about 1.5 miles, I think.
Of course, the foreground
Maybe
pad
2 miles.
pad A taken over by SpaceX for their Falcon 9 and maybe their Starship operations, and then in the distance, pad 39B is now the Artemis pad. And beyond that are the beautiful beaches of Playa Linda National Park. And there's Atlantis. Thank you, Mark Usiak, a photo he took at the Astronaut Hall of Fame induction a year back. There the payload doors are open. You see the hatch that the astronauts went in. there, and always a mesmerizing sight for me to look up. It is so big, and yet it was so wonderful. Flew beautifully. Everyone loves how it flew, and it did everything that it said it was going to do, and then some. Now, here's a picture that you might all know was taken during this, and I thought for sure that this was taken before the final launch. And of course, that is the great John Young and Bob Crippen over there with the three members of the crew of STS-135. Cripp and Young, of course, were STS-1, the boldest test flight of all, flying a vehicle that had never been flown before, not even uncrewed. And John Young, this was his fifth trip to space. He would later do another shuttle as commander of STS-9. I wanted to look up how old he was there, Marty, and how close that was to his passing away. Few years with him passing away, but they weren't going to miss the opportunity to have a photo of the first and last cruise of the shuttle. And there's another lineup picture that they had. But I learned through my research that this was taken not before the last flight of STS-135, but as late as November 2011. July, August, September, October, November. 4 months later, after the successful mission, they got the crews together at Houston and took a bunch of cool pictures of this. And Bob Crippen, in a story on Collect Space, said that he was very glad that they did that, and that it was quite a historic moment for him. And I just picked out two of the 5 or 6 pictures that you see. Of course, John Young wearing that famous dickie of his in there, but these were taken 4 months after the end of the program. And that's kind of disappointing for me to learn, but still they got the Alpha and the Omega in there. And as I show you the pictures there, Steve Joachim says it was 17 incidences that the space shuttle was on 2 pads simultaneously. And they weren't all for safety reasons for the other ship either. So there's a beautiful picture of Atlantis over the Bahamas in orbit. With Raphael in his cargo bay there. Again, they emptied that and then brought it back to Earth. The patch of STS-135 and the launch of STS-1 with the white tank with the ring around the top on April 12th, 1981. Quite an enormous. Whoop, sorry, Marty, I dropped that. He was giving me who's all watching. There we go. All righty, let me reach down here and say hello to all you good people watching there. Doug Forrest joined us. I talked to Doug yesterday, but quite 30 years from there to the end of the program. And let's just end it with what STS-1 was all about. In our patch book here is STS-1, the official insignia of the first space shuttle. The sphere of the Earth is in the background. The triangle, a bright color ranging from red to yellow, symbolizes the blast of the engines. An orbital oval surrounds the Earth and represents the orbit of the space shuttle, done by space artist Robert McCall, legendary artist there. And on the patch, the good patch is worth over maybe $100, has the gold, yellow, orange, and red, 4 colors in the exhaust there, and a few other little nuances there. So that's what it means to us, and the end of the program, America at its best, of course, with the Shuttle Era. Yes, Marty?
Yeah, just FYI, the distance from LC-39A to 39, let me get the mic back on. The distance from line of sight from LC-39A to 39B is 1.65 miles.
1.65 miles, a mile and a half.
0.15.
Pardon me, what?
So I missed it by 0.15.
Yeah, you missed it by 0.15. But very close, and what a sight that was always to see. 17 times, Jokums tells us there that they were out on the pad together, different orbiters out there. So many of you waxing eloquently with some of your memories of the launch and landing over the years in there. Glad that we could rekindle those memories with you there. JB Jubilee, Dean Babcock, Carlton Bailey, Tommy Usiak, Dave Stangy, Steve Jokums, Tom Celentano, and all of you. We appreciate you watching today. And kind of bittersweet, 14 years. We'll have Terry White on the show later in the month, and he'll look back at those 14 years as if they were just last week, I'm sure. And but the shuttle continues to influence the way we live with what it has done to build the International Space Station. So thank you all for joining us today. And thank you, Chris Calley, for this patriotic symbolism there. And we hope that you can join us tomorrow with Christopher Lee Jones, and Winnie the Pooh. No, we've got Christopher Lee Jones here. Talk about his fictional novel that has to do with the Kessler effect, as he's an advocate and a space geek. He recently got back into his love for the shuttle when he saw a Falcon 9 rocket, the heavy launch and the two solid rocket boosters land, and that really got him turned on again. You're going to enjoy Vern Connor on Thursday, as Vern wrote a kind of a book about his observations as a kid and his dad in the space program, in a book called Behind the Missiles. So we know you'll enjoy that the next 2 days. So until tomorrow, I'm Mark Marquette saying I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.